1972. The Summer Olympics are hosted in Munich, which is meant to symbolize peace and international unity. After the horrors of World War II, Germany is eager to present a new, positive image to the world. The city of Munich, known for its rich culture and history, is chosen to host the Games. It is an event filled with hope and excitement, featuring athletes from around the globe, all gathered to celebrate the spirit of sport and camaraderie. As the Games begin, the atmosphere is electric, brimming with joy and optimism. The motto, "The Happy Games," reflects the organizers' desire to create a peaceful and friendly environment. Security is intentionally relaxed to promote this welcoming atmosphere. However, amidst the celebrations, unseen tension simmers beneath the surface. These tensions will soon erupt in a way that no one could have foreseen, leading to a tragic and unforgettable chapter in Olympic history. The tragedy. The Western German Olympic Organizing Committee has worked hard to present a new image of Germany, moving away from the militaristic impression left by the 1936 Olympics under Adolf Hitler. They want these games to be the happy games, with minimal security to create a friendly, carefree atmosphere. Security personnel known as Olis are most prepared to handle minor issues like ticket fraud and drunkenness. But this relaxed approach leaves the athletes vulnerable. The documentary film One Day in September will later reveal that security in the athletes' village was almost non-existent. Athletes could easily slip past the lax security, hopping over fences to visit friends in other countries' rooms. This lack of security worried Israeli delegation head Shmuel Lalkin, even before his team arrived in Munich. In later interviews, Lalkin will recount how he voiced his concerns to the authorities about the team's lodgings. The Israeli athletes are placed in a relatively isolated part of the village, on the ground floor near a gate, which Lalkin later felt made them an easy target. Although German authorities assure him of extra security, Lalkin doubts that any real measures are taken. To make matters worse, Olympic organizers have dismissed warnings that could prevent a tragedy. West German forensic psychologist George Sieber created 26 terrorism scenarios to help plan security. His Situation 21 eerily predicted the exact scenario: armed Palestinians invading the Israeli quarters, taking hostages, and demanding the release of prisoners and a plane for escape. However, the organizers choose not to prepare for such scenarios, believing it will clash with their vision of a carefree event. In a shocking revelation, the German magazine Der Spiegel will later report in 2012 that West German authorities received a tip-off from a Palestinian informant in Beirut 3 weeks before the massacre. The informant warned of an impending incident at the Olympics, and the tip was taken seriously enough to be passed to the Secret Service in Munich. Despite this, no action was taken. This failure, along with other mishandlings, was part of a 40-year cover-up by German authorities. The Black September Organization. September 3rd. A plane lands in Munich airport from Libya. Among the passengers, a group of people, mostly from refugee camps in Lebanon, Syria, and Jordan, comes to Munich for a very specific purpose. This group belongs to a Palestinian terrorist organization called the Black September Organization. The attackers are led by Latif Afif, known by his codename Issa, whose brothers are imprisoned in Israel. Alongside him were Yusuf Nazal, Khalid Jawad, Mohammed Safadi, Adnan al-Gashay, Jamal al-Gashay, and others. The terrorists have been planning their attack meticulously. Some, including Afif and Nazal, have worked in the Olympic Village and will use their positions to scout out their targets. On the night of September 4th, the Israeli team enjoys a night out, watching Fiddler on the Roof and dining with its star. Little do they know, it will be their last peaceful evening. The team comes back at their quarters around 2 a.m. September 5th, 4:30 a.m. 8 members of Black September, dressed in tracksuits and carrying sports bags filled with AKM assault rifles, pistols, and grenades, scale a chain-link fence with the help from unsuspecting Canadian athletes sneaking into the village after a night out. Using stolen keys, they enter the Israeli quarters on the ground floor of the 31 Connollystrasse. Room number 1. Yosef Gutfriend, a wrestling referee, is the first to notice the intruders. Hearing a noise at the door, he sees armed men and immediately shouts to warn his roommates. He throws his weight against the door, buying precious time for others. His actions allow weightlifting coach Tuvia Sokolovsky to escape through a window, but fail to prevent 5 athletes from being taken hostage. Wrestling coach Moshe Weinberg, who was allowed to come back later to spend some time with his family in Munich, arrives at the quarters. As soon as he gets in the building, he's attacked by the terrorist. Forced by the gunmen to lead them to more hostages, Weinberg leads them purposely to the room number 3, occupied by wrestlers and weightlifters. At the room number 3, a violent fight starts between the terrorists and the athletes, and panic is reaching the terrorists. During the chaos, Weinberg attacks the terrorists again, helping one wrestler, Gad Sabari, escape. Tragically, Weinberg and weightlifter Yosef Romano are shot and killed in their brave attempts to resist. Romano's body is left in the room as a grim warning to the others. The terrorists bound their remaining 9 hostages, who include athletes and coaches, and line them up in the rooms. Among them are shooting coach Kahat Shor, track and field coach Amatzer Shapira, fencing master Andrei Spitzer, weightlifting judge Yakov Springer, wrestlers Eliezer Halfin and Mark Slavin, and weightlifters David Berger and Ziev Friedman. The hostages endure beatings and are tied up tightly, with Romano's body lying at their feet. Meanwhile, racewalker Shaul Ladani, awakened from the initial commotion, jumps from his second-story balcony and runs to alert others. He reaches the American dormitory, spreading the alarm about the unfolding attack. Other Israeli team members hide or flee, narrowly escaping capture. This horrific event marks the beginning of a tense and tragic standoff, shaking the world and forever altering the history of the Olympic Games. The negotiations. The hostage crisis at the Munich Olympics takes a dire turn when the terrorists revealed their demands. They require the release of 234 Palestinians and non-Arabs jailed in Israel, as well as 2 West German insurgents, Andreas Bader and Ulrich Meinhof of the Red Army faction, at 12 p.m. To show their resolve, the terrorists throw the body of Moshe Weinberg out of the front door. Israel's response was unequivocal. There will be no negotiation with terrorists. The German authorities, led by Chancellor Willy Brandt and Interior Minister Hans-Dietrich Genscher, rejects Israel's offer to send a special forces unit. Bavarian Interior Minister Bruno Merk, part of the crisis team, will later deny that such an offer existed. The situation is politically fraught for Germany, especially with Jewish hostages involved. Journalist John K. Cooley reports that Germany offers the terrorists money and even substitution by high-ranking Germans, but these offers are refused. Munich police chief Manfred Schreiber and Bruno Merk negotiate directly with the kidnappers, offering an unlimited amount of money, but are met with a chilling response: money means nothing to us. Our lives mean nothing to us. Efforts by Egyptian advisors to the Arab League and an Egyptian member of the International Olympic Committee to win concessions also fail. However, negotiators manage to convince the terrorists that their demands are being considered, buying time as the terrorists extend their deadlines. Throughout the village, the Olympic Games continue almost as usual, with many athletes unaware of the crisis nearby. Pressure eventually forces the IOC to suspend the Games 12 hours after the first athlete was murdered. U.S. marathon runner Frank Shorter, observing from his balcony, poignantly remarks on the hostages' plight, imagining the terror of constant death threats from their captors. 4:30 p.m. 38 West German police officers in Olympic sweatsuits equipped with submachine guns but no combat or hostage rescue experience prepare to storm the building from ventilation shafts. However, live television broadcasts allow the terrorists to see the police's movements, forcing the officers to retreat after Issa threatens to kill 2 hostages. Negotiators then demand direct contact with the hostages to confirm their safety. Fencing coach Andrei Spitzer and shooting coach Kahat Shor briefly speak with West West German officials from a window. Spitzer, speaking fluent German, is clubbed with an AK-47 in full view of the cameras. Interior Minister Genscher and Olympic Village Mayor Walter Troger is allowed inside briefly, reporting the hostages' calm demeanor despite signs of abuse. The terrorists express willingness to be flown to an Arab country if their safety is guaranteed. The German plan is to offer transport to Cairo, with 2 helicopters taking the group to a NATO airbase at the Fürstenfeldbruck Air Base inside of Munich's International Airport. Snipers are placed around the airbase, but their lack of training and proper equipment will prove disastrous. The final attempt to overpower the terrorists falls apart as the policemen inside the plane, disguised as crew, abandon their mission at the last minute, leaving only the snipers. When the terrorists discover the empty plane, a gunfight ensues. In the chaos, 2 terrorists holding the pilots are killed, but others take cover, returning fire and killing a West German policeman. The pilots escape, but the bound hostages are left helpless. Despite their efforts to loosen their bonds during the shootout, the hostages remain trapped. They all shall die. The failure of the rescue attempt culminates in the massacre of the hostages. The armored personnel carriers called in too late arrives at Fürstenfeldbruck around midnight due to traffic delays, signaling to the terrorists a change in the situation. In response, one of the terrorists, likely Issa, opens fire on the hostages in one of the helicopters with a Kalashnikov assault rifle, killing several instantly. He then detonates a grenade, causing an explosion that destroys the helicopter and incinerates the Israelis inside. Issa attempts to escape but is shot dead by police. Another terrorist, Khalid Jawad, also tries to flee but is killed by a sniper. The remaining hostages in the second helicopter are similarly executed by a third terrorist, Adnan al-Gashay, who machine-gunned them at close range. The chaos and confusion of the firefight leads to friendly fire incidents, further complicating the rescue efforts. 3 terrorists are captured, one of whom feigned death. Another, Yusuf Nazal, initially escapes but will be later found and killed by police. By 1:30 a.m. on September 6th, the operation ends in tragedy, with all 9 remaining hostages killed. Initial reports erroneously claim that all hostages are safe and all terrorists dead. The grim reality is confirmed later, with broadcaster Jim McKay famously announcing, "They're all gone."
9 were killed at the airport tonight. They're all gone.
Capturing the world's shock and sorrow, survivor Shal Ladani will later reflect on the emotional impact upon returning to Israel, where the magnitude of the tragedy truly hit home. The botched rescue attempt draws widespread criticism for its lack of preparation and execution. The German authorities' mistakes highlighted their unpreparedness for dealing with a hostage situation involving highly trained terrorists. The snipers were not trained for such operations, and their equipment was unsuitable for the task. They lacked proper sniper rifles and night vision equipment, and there were no armored vehicles on standby. Communication failures were also significant. The snipers had no radio contact with each other or the command center, hindering coordination. The crisis committee, composed of 2 politicians and 1 police officer, was not effectively structured to handle the situation. Tactical errors compounded the situation. The helicopter's positioning exposed the hostages and snipers to danger. The snipers' lack of protective gear and clear instructions further complicated the operation. The decision to proceed with the rescue despite knowing there were more terrorists than initially thought proved fatal. Post-war restrictions in West Germany's constitution prevented the military from intervening in domestic crises, leaving the operation solely in the hands of the local police and authorities, who were ill-equipped for such a complex and dangerous mission. The tragic outcome led to significant changes in counterterrorism tactics and the establishment of specialized units like the German GSG-9, designed to handle such crises more effectively in the future. The aftermath. The aftermath of the Munich Massacre sees significant repercussions and responses worldwide. The bodies of the 5 Palestinian attackers killed during the Fürstenfeldbruck gun battle, Afif, Nazal, Chikta, Hamid, and Jawad, are delivered to Libya, where they received heroes' funerals and are buried with full military honors. This celebration of the terrorists as martyrs will further inflame tensions in the region and underscore the stark divisions that characterize the Middle Eastern conflict. In retaliation, on September 8th, Israeli planes bombed 10 PLO bases in Syria and Lebanon, resulting in the deaths of an estimated 200 militants and 11 civilians. This aggressive response highlights Israel's determination to strike back hard against those responsible for the atrocity and serves as a stark reminder of the ongoing and escalating violence in the region. The 3 surviving Black September gunmen who had been arrested after the Furstenfeldbruck gunfight are held in a Munich prison awaiting trial. However, on October 29th, Lufthansa Flight 615 is hijacked, with the hijackers demanding the release of the Munich attackers. West Germany, facing the threat of further bloodshed, capitulate and release Safadi and the Al-Ghashais. They receive a tumultuous welcome upon their arrival in Libya, where they hold a press conference to recount their actions, broadcast worldwide. This incident sparks theories of a secret agreement between the German government and Black September, suggesting that the terrorists released is part of a deal to prevent further attacks on Germany. The impact of the Munich Massacre on the 1972 Olympic Games is profound. For the first time in modern Olympic history, competition has been suspended for 34 hours. A memorial service held on September 6th was attended by 80,000 spectators and 3,000 athletes in the Olympic Stadium. IOC President Avery Brundage's speech during the service, which barely mentioned the murdered athletes and instead focused on praising the Olympic movement, outraged many listeners. The families of the victims, represented by Andrei Spitzer's widow Anki, Moshe Weinberg's mother, and his cousin Carmel Eliash, were deeply affected by the loss and the tone of the memorial. The aftermath will see various reactions from the participating nations. During a football match between West Germany and Hungary, some spectators display a banner reading 17 dead, already forgotten, which will be promptly removed by the security. This highlights the tension between those wanting to remember the tragedy and the officials' desire to continue the games. The Olympic flag was flown at half-staff, but the mandate will be rescinded after objections from 10 Arab nations. Willy Dama, president of the Munich Organizing Committee, initially sought to cancel the remainder of the games, but IOC President Brundage and others insisted on continuing. Brundage's declaration that the games must go on was endorsed by the Israeli government and the Israeli Olympic team's chef de mission, Shmuel Lalkin. However, after the memorial service, the remaining members of the Israeli team withdrew and left Munich, feeling unsafe and disillusioned. The American swimming star Mark Spitz, who had completed his competitions, also left Munich amid fears he might be a kidnapping target. Other nations reacted similarly. The Egyptian team left the games on September 7th, fearing reprisals, followed by the Philippine and Algerian teams. Some Dutch and Norwegian athletes also withdrew, with Dutch distance runner Jos Hermans poignantly stating, "It's quite simple. We were invited to a party, and if someone comes to the party and shoots people, how can you stay?" Many athletes, shocked and saddened by the tragedy, stayed but found their competitive spirit deeply affected. 4 years later, at the 1976 Summer Olympics in Montreal, the Israeli team commemorates the massacre by adorning their national flag with a black ribbon during the opening ceremony. This act of remembrance underscores the lasting impact of the Munich tragedy on the Israeli team and the broader Olympic community. The families of the victims have long campaigned for a permanent memorial to the athletes. The IOC, however, has consistently declined, fearing it might alienate other members of the Olympic community. This reluctance was evident when the IOC rejected a campaign for a minute of silence at the opening ceremony of the 2012 London Olympics on the 40th anniversary of the massacre. Jacques Rogge, the IOC president, deemed it inappropriate, despite the ceremony including a memorial for the victims of the 2005 London bombings. This decision was met with criticism, particularly from survivors and the victims' families, who felt it was a slight to the memory of the slain athletes. In 2014, the IOC agreed to contribute $250,000 towards a memorial to the murdered Israeli athletes. The first official IOC commemoration took place at the Rio 2016 Olympic Village on August 4, 2016. This marked a significant moment in acknowledging the tragedy and honoring the victims. The remainings of the September Group. The fates of the surviving Black September gunmen have been shrouded in mystery and controversy. Two of the three surviving gunmen, Mohammed Safadi and Adnan al-Gashey, were allegedly killed by Mossad as part of Operation Wrath of God, an Israeli campaign of targeted assassinations aimed at eliminating those responsible for the Munich Massacre. Al-Gashey was reportedly located after making contact with a cousin in a Gulf state, while Safadi was found by remaining in touch with family in Lebanon. However, these accounts have been contested. Aaron J. Klein, in his book, claims that al-Gashey actually died of heart failure in the 1970s, and that Safadi was killed by Christian phalangists in Lebanon in the early 1980s. This was further challenged in July 2005 when PLO veteran Tawfiq Tarawi told Klein that Safadi, whom Tarawi claimed as a close friend, was as alive as you are. Abu Daoud. Abu Daoud, the mastermind behind the Munich Massacre, is one of the few planners of the attack known to have died of natural causes. Historical documents revealed that Dortmund police were aware of Daoud's collaboration with neo-Nazi Willy Pohl 7 weeks before the Munich attack. In January 1977, Abu Daoud was intercepted by French police in Paris while traveling from Beirut under an assumed name. Despite West Germany's extradition request, which was refused on technical grounds, Daoud was allowed to travel to Algeria, sparking international outrage. In a surprising twist, Abu Daoud was granted safe passage through Israel in 1996 to attend a PLO meeting in Gaza, aimed at rescinding an article in its charter that called for Israel's eradication. In his autobiography, From Jerusalem to Munich, published in 1999, and in an interview with Sports Illustrated, Daoud claimed that Mahmoud Abbas, then chairman of the PLO and president of the Palestinian National Authority, had provided the funds for the Munich operation. Daoud asserted that Abbas did not know the specified purpose of the funds. He speculated that had Israel known about Abbas's involvement, the 1993 Oslo Accords, during which Abbas was a key figure, might not have been achieved. Ankie Spitzer, widow of fencing coach and Munich victim Andre Spitzer, repeatedly declined offers to meet with Abu Daoud, insisting that the only place she wanted to confront him was in a courtroom. She believed Daoud had not faced justice for his role in the massacre. In 2006, during the release of Steven Spielberg's film Munich, Daoud was interviewed by Der Spiegel and remained unapologetic, stating, "I regret nothing. You can only dream that I would apologize." Abu Daoud died of kidney failure on July 3, 2010 in Damascus, Syria. His death marked the end of a controversial and violent chapter in the history of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. But the legacy of his actions and the questions surrounding the surviving Black September members continue to evoke strong emotions and debates. Bottom line. Several memorials exist to remember the slain athletes. In Munich, a stone tablet at the bridge linking the stadium to the former Olympic Village and a memorial tablet at their former lodging at 31 Königstrasse commemorate the tragedy. On October 15, 1999, a memorial plaque was unveiled outside the Sydney Olympic Stadium, nearly a year before the 2000 Games. The 2020 Summer Olympics in Tokyo included a moment of silence during the opening ceremony, a significant gesture marking the first time the massacre was acknowledged during the opening ceremony. Thus ends the terrible story of the 1972 Munich Olympics tragedy. If you've watched this video until the end, write tragedy in the comments, and tell me about your thoughts on this story. How did you learn about this story? And if you were alive, feel free to share your feelings at the time. Personally, I wasn't alive when it happened, but I can't even imagine how shocking this must have been. Don't forget to tell me if you'd like more videos like that, and I hope to see you soon.